This is the Dave Elliott Show.
And a good Monday morning to you. It is July 27th, 2026. It's the Dave Elliott Show, live on YouTube. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're around for the next hour and a half, 2 hours or so, and we have some great guests lined up for you today. We're going to be talking with our good friend Joe Connolly, formerly from WCBS in New York. We'll tell you all about that in a few minutes. And J.C. Bruce, our friend who is an author and a columnist and a funny, fun guy, will be with us in the 8 o'clock hour as well. Weather today, there's a little bit of rain out there. It looks like it's heading our way this afternoon anyway. There's a little bit of rain activity down near Everglades City, but it's moving offshore, and we're going to experience temperatures just about where they have been. If you didn't notice, it rained a little bit yesterday. On and off. I described the day to my wife as we were watching television last night. I said, today was a dreary day. Now, I had a very interesting experience Saturday. I thought I would share it with you. I'm sure you've done this. I had to lease a new car. My lease was up on my current vehicle, and I debated going to the same dealer that I had worked with before. But I thought maybe I could get a better deal if I went to the dealer of the same car in Fort Myers. It's 30 miles away, but they often have better deals. Well, sure enough, I got up there, we got up there, and even though it is quite a lengthy process, I have yet to understand why it takes 4 hours to buy a car, but it does. And they couldn't have been nicer at the dealership. The salesperson we worked with was terrific. I drove the vehicle, I liked it, and I brought it home. And for once, I can honestly tell you that a retail experience I've had turned out just as great as one might hope it would. So I would definitely go back there. I don't think it's important to know who it was, but I will tell you this. If you're buying an automobile in this day and age, it pays to shop around. A couple of things that my wife taught me about this process. One, take a look at your vehicle, the one you're trading in or turning in, and see what dealerships are selling that model with your approximate mileage for on their used car lot. Because that'll give you an idea of what the trade-in value ought to be, bearing in mind that you're not going to get as much for the car as what they are selling it for on the lot, but it might give you an indication if they want to make $3,000 or $4,000, deduct that from the price of the car on the lot, and that'll give you a rough idea of what your trade-in is. That's the easy way to do it. The hard way is you can go to one of these websites where they ask you to put in all the information, and then they give you an appraisal of the car, and then you get 85 calls or text messages from all these car salesmen who want to sell you something. I prefer the first method myself. The other thing I learned is not all car salespeople are created equal, and by that I mean it's entirely likely you'll get a ringer or you'll get a good one. We lucked out and got a good one. So congratulations to us for that. Now, oil prices have taken a drop. Apparently, the United States and Iraq are calling off attacks on each other for a while, and that caused oil prices to drop today as the United States and Iran paused their strikes to make space for diplomacy. One of the stories I heard is that one of the reasons the United States is wanting to stop is we're running out of defensive missiles. We're running out. The two sides halted fire over the weekend following 13 consecutive nights of attacks. As you know, the ceasefire, for the most part, toast. International benchmark Brent crude sank to below $90 a barrel this morning. It had been at $100 a barrel or plus previous to that, while U.S. crude dropped to around $83 a barrel, and that's about 7% down for both. Global markets were also mostly higher. U.S. stock futures are beginning to surge a little bit, which is good news, I guess, for the oil companies. I'm not sure if it's good news for us. I know that my buddy Joe could answer that question. Let's bring Joe in. Joe, I told you I might bring you in a little early this morning. Joe Connolly joins us from Connecticut this morning. Hi, Joe. Oh, wait a minute. Let me unmute you. There you go. Talk.
Good morning, Dave. It's great to hear you on air or on podcast again. You're just so easy and casual to listen to. It brings me back to my time working in Florida with you.
When I had my studio, you would come in when you would take vacation, which was not really vacation for you, but it was for your wife and son.
Yeah.
And you would get up at some ungodly hour, 4 o'clock in the morning, come traipsing into the studio and prepare your reports for WCBS All News Radio, which I guess now has gone away.
Yeah, WCBS All News Radio has gone away. As a matter of fact, I worked at your studio in the wintertime, and I asked, you never want to surprise your boss. So I asked my boss, is it okay if I work at a friend's studio in Florida this winter? And he said, yeah, sure, okay. He says, as long as you don't tell anybody, because I don't want everybody asking to do that. So nobody knew all those years that I was in Florida doing the New York City news. And some guys from other stations had done that as well.
Except when they hear the occasional alligator growling.
It worked beautifully because your studio is so great, and those were great times. So that's where Dave and I go way back.
We've been around a while. Let me put it this way: both of us are about the same age. We've knocked around this business an awfully long time. You had the great distinction of being in the number one media market in the country, possibly the world. And that was New York. Now, you lived in Connecticut and you used to commute to the city, right?
Well, I used to go in sometimes. I have a studio in Connecticut because I told them I didn't want to move back into New York City for the fourth time. And they said, well, these lines are coming in now. You can do it from your studio in Connecticut. But I would go in 1 or 2 days a week often just for the camaraderie of being in a newsroom and the energy. I didn't want to become like the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain somewhere speaking from home. And so those were very good days. And WCBS All News Radio 88 went off the air about a year and a half ago. And it's a symbol of what is happening in the radio news business. The radio news business is having very hard times economically now. And this goes back for a while, actually, where all of this has started, was when the internet came in and took away the ads that radio stations depended on to fund their operations. Now they don't have ads like they used to on the radio, which paid all of the bills. Salespeople at WCBS used to say, we're the station to advertise on if you sell $500 neckties and suits, and that was correct. And they had great advertisers, but a lot of those advertisers, went away and started doing social media and other types of advertising. And then, aside from WCBS in New York City closing, what happened a few weeks ago that affects the whole country is that the CBS Radio News Network closed down.
I heard that, and that's just part of the, not part of the Paramount deal. Well, it was part of the Paramount deal.
Right, it was, which has now been delayed. But, the media, radio and TV people who I know are very sad about what has happened. Now, a lot of changes are being made to try to keep the media as we know it going and improving it. But, the CBS Radio Network had 700 radio stations around the country. Boom, they didn't care. They were now without news. Some of them have found other sources of their news. CBS Radio Network had 23 million listeners. But the people who run the big media companies now don't care about radio, really, because it's old. It's not new and flashy. They now want to buy up other companies and grow bigger, and the White House is helping them do that. So all the attention is on growing and making conglomerates that do more things. And
Well, the other problem you have is that the radio audience is aging out. We grew up in an era where there was, remember the NBC Monitor Beacon on the weekends? And you'd tune in to NBC News on an affiliate station, and you'd hear nothing but talk. And it was really compelling. Sometimes it would be hard news. Sometimes it would be soft news. It would be features. It would be, you just didn't know what you were getting. I remember that in the 60s very, very distinctly. But the audience is aging out, and the younger kids, I say anybody under 60 is a kid. The younger kids now go to streaming media. Everything's on demand, or it's in a podcast form. So I decided, for my sake, I wasn't ready to give up the business yet. And when I was told that my show was being canceled here about 3 weeks ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to continue doing this. I think there's an audience for this, and I think there are people who will enjoy hearing what we talk about, and there's no reason not to do it. And one of the things that platforms like YouTube have done is they have democratized the ability of people to communicate mass media like. I have potentially more listeners, and you do too, on YouTube than I ever did on a 6,000 watt FM station in Naples, Florida, because I have the whole world available to me now.
That's right.
And
here's the problem that news people talk about. I was on a weekly news media Zoom that about 100 of us have, and this well-known TV anchorman who I know said the problem with some of what you're talking about, Dave, is that, as he put it, he says the problem now is that a lot of people are getting their news on, quote, some idiot on TikTok from some idiot on TikTok. And I remember, too, when Google came in, a New York Times reporter who had covered dangerous assignments all over the world said to me that, he said, how many news reporters does Google have in Beirut, Lebanon? None. They were just taking the news that was being reported by the New York Times and other people. So all of these things have hurt the economics of radio. But there is some better news about radio. Radio stations, as you said, are putting their news on all types of new media now, including on podcasts like this. And they have to do this. They're hiring smart people who know how to do these new ways of putting out news with pictures and audio and video and everything else. But there's some talk about possibly trying to get the cell phone companies to put a radio news button onto cell phones so that people could go to the top of the hour news if they wanted to, or if weather was breaking or news was breaking, so that they could get it over their phone, which I think would be great.
Well, most phones, except for the iPhone, I think, have a FM. I think it's an FM chip in them. They actually are capable of receiving FM broadcasts. But Apple has just not decided. One of the reasons Apple doesn't want to implement that is because they want you to buy their audio, their music, their everything, and they would rather not have you get free advertiser-supported product.
Right.
But I think it makes sense. You remember when you were a kid in the 60s, you had that little pocket transistor with the little earphone that you plugged in your ear?
Sure do.
Though, if you think about it, your iPhone, if anything, is even smaller than that old portable pocket 9-volt transistor radio that you had. And it makes sense that it would be available to you live and local. And I think it would be a huge boon to radio station owners all around the country if the cell phone companies would do this. I know the NAB is pushing for that, and the National Association of Broadcasters is pushing for that. You've now got people like Tesla and other electric car manufacturers who wanted to ditch AM radio from their cars because the electric motors interfered with the reception of the signal. And Congress put a stop to that. They said, no, if you're going to offer radio, you're going to offer AM radio too.
Right.
And you'll have to figure out a way to shield the antenna.
There's is that the answer?
Yeah.
There's an effort, to require them to put radios in cars, but it just sits there in Congress. Radio news it is local news. Usually we listen to the big stations if we're in a big city, but the local stations are so important. I know a radio station in Connecticut, WINY, local radio station, been there for years. And they broadcast live every single boys and girls, high schools, sports games, and they sell the coverage of those sports events to a different bank or law firm or car dealership in every single town in their whole region. And they do a very good job. So some stations are still doing well if they're able to, local radio stations, if they are able to really have a hold on their community. But it takes money that some stations no longer have. Some people don't know that some local stations now don't even have anybody in the studio. They've laid everybody off.
Run by computer.
And they're putting in a feed from someplace else in the country, and they'll place a few little local items in that feed. But sometimes, if you're listening to a local radio station now, there's nobody in the building.
Yeah, the person you think you're listening to in your town is in Texas or Oklahoma or Illinois or someplace. Let me ask you, how many years were you at WCBS?
Oh, boy, 30 or 40 years maybe.
And in the time you were there, how did technology change for the better and for the worse?
Oh, wow. I remember when we were all trained how to use the computer to write our scripts instead of a typewriter. It changed for the better, and it was almost always for the better. We could have more audio from around the world. We would still print out our scripts, though. A few of the guys would read off the screen, but many of us would print out the scripts to have hard copy. And things just got better and faster, or not faster, but I should say more efficient.
Well, and also your turnaround times are a lot shorter as times are moving on.
Right.
If something was breaking now, you could literally have a person with a cell phone on the scene in minutes, as opposed to having to bring a film crew out, if they were TV, using 16 millimeter film, which then had to be rushed back to the studio and processed. Mm-hmm. Or in the case of a reel-to-reel or cassette tape recorder, you'd have to record it, and if it needed to be edited, you'd have to cut and splice with a pair of scissors and some Scotch tape.
Yep. To
put it all together, or recording tape, whatever the case might be. And that was a time-consuming process.
When I was a street reporter early in my career for WCBS, and before that up in Connecticut and Massachusetts, we carried dimes, because we had to go find a payphone.
Oh, sure, payphones, yeah.
And Mark Knoller from the Associated Press used to carry a wrench. And sometimes when there would be a story, we would go to knock on the door of some house in the area of the story. And what we would do to feed our report would be we would unscrew the mouthpiece of the people's telephone. But you had to do it in front of yourself so that they didn't see you doing that, because they'd say, "What are you doing to my phone?" And we'd put the alligator clips on the two prompts in there, and we would feed our report over that way if we couldn't find a payphone. It
By
didn't hurt the
feed your
phone at
report,
all.
you meant you had a portable tape recorder that you would plug into the phone
Yeah.
mouthpiece and send that
Yes.
audio
So,
back over.
yeah, right. We would, yes, exactly.
I
Exactly.
remember one time jury rigging a phone that I had to be able to plug a microphone into it. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I understood the basics of how audio worked, and I think I blew up a couple of phones before I finally got it to work properly.
Oh, wow.
But we used to do high school football games, and we had a big metal box that had a phone in it, and the phone company had provided to us. And it had jacks on the outside so you could plug your mic mixer into it, and then you could also hear audio back from the radio station so you knew when the commercial breaks were over. And we would do all of our high school and college football, basketball, baseball games over a phone line. Today, it's done with a device called an Access, which you and I talked about the other day, which is a thing that you can plug into the internet and be instantly connected to the home base. And it sounds like you're right in the studio, much as the software we're using today to communicate 1,500 miles away from each other.
You know, you get me thinking about the old days at WCBS, and um, I knew Walter Cronkite some, and what a role model he was. And I remember one of the bosses said to me one time, he said, "Joe," he said, you know, he said, "I want to hire reporters who let me know how they feel about a story." Well, I started to rear back, and I said, "Oh my, what is this? I'm not gonna do that." And he held up his finger. I took the bait. He said, "I said how they feel about the story, not what they think about the story."
Ah, very interesting difference there.
Isn't that? And he said, "Why do people love Walter Cronkite? Because you know, if Walter thinks this is exciting, or man has landed on the moon, or it's thrilling, or it's sad, or it's tragic, oh wait, you had an idea how he felt about it, which is a valid media usage of what you're talking about, but nobody knew what he thought about the story." I never forgot that little lesson, you know?
That's a good one. I wish I'd have known that when I was in my teens.
You know?
I
Now
always thought you had to be so down the road, so down the middle, so careful with your language
right.
that you didn't give away your own personal biases in the story. And then I learned, in fact, I just saw it yesterday on PBS, the famous video of Walter Cronkite sitting at the desk when he announced the assassination of President Kennedy, and he took his glasses off,
Mm.
and he had a moment where he just sort of, gulped and tried to regain his composure. And I think he sort of amplified what the people who were watching him thought at the time, and he did it with no words.
I'd like young people today, or maybe teachers could suggest to them that they go back and look at just a couple of videos of Walter Cronkite to see what news looked like on TV one time, and to see how good it was and how down the middle it was,
Yeah.
you know. And he was just the nicest man. He didn't like to come back to CBS after he retired too often, because his assistant told me he doesn't like to come in because every time he comes in, he gets licked to death. Because he was so popular.
Oh, I
So
would
he
imagine. Yeah.
so he didn't like to come around. So when he would come in sometimes, he would come into a back studio in radio if he had some things to record. And I was talking with him one time, and I said, I said, "I like these shows you do on PBS." And he's just a news guy or a journalist or a radio guy like you and I, Dave. No attitude or anything about him. And he immediately launched into, he says, I really like doing that. I have Jim, who's the producer, and I have Mary, who's this and that, talking about his staff, the people who worked for him,
Mm-hmm.
not boasting about himself, And I said, well, you really ought to do more of those. And I remember he said to me, well, I'm not exactly in the swim like I used to be, which sounded so much like Walter Cronkite.
Another big name that was in the house there was Murrow, Edward R. Murrow.
Right.
Did you ever have any encounters with him?
No, I think he was gone before I was in high school, His
Yeah.
photos were all around the building. And he was the man, for those who don't know, who covered World War II for CBS radio, which was probably just about all radio during World War II. Mutual and others were just coming in. And he would stand on the rooftops of London, and his signature was, "This is London."
Yeah.
And
Smoking a cigarette the whole time.
oh yeah, actually, he's got the cigarette in the photos. Yeah.
How did you get into the radio business to begin with? We're talking with Joe Connolly, formerly with WCBS in New York, CBS AM All News Radio. 880, right?
880.
880. I remember.
Yeah.
How did you get into the business?
For some reason, I was interested in it as I was a kid, and I used to make radio stations little radio stations in my house, and it was the 1950s, and Eisenhower was president, and I was a little kid, and Eisenhower had a number of heart attacks. So we had an early 1950s television in the house, and a bulletin would come on the TV. And my mother and father would say, shh, shh, everybody, bulletin, bulletin, bulletin.
I remember bulletins. Now it's called breaking news.
Right, now it's called breaking news bulletin. And gee whiz, everybody was listening, So I said, wow, that's pretty cool. So I made these radio stations, and I'd play a record, and I'd lift the needle and say, bulletin, bulletin. And I'd announce something in the house. And so I always was interested in radio, and got into it. And
did you visit radio stations as a kid to kind of get the feel
anyone
for what
that
it
would
was?
let me in,
Yeah,
I called them all, like you probably did.
I did.
And then when I got my driver's license, I somehow got the number to the DJ in the radio station, and I said, "Hey, it's Joe Connolly over in such town." I said, if you want, I can bring you a coffee. And the guy said, yeah, and come to the back door and knock on the door. So I'd go get a coffee for the guy and drop it off. And he was probably 7 or 8 years older than I was, and wanted company. And I would stay there for 2 or 3 hours in the studio with him because he wanted someone to talk to.
Today, if you did that, they'd probably wind up arresting the person for being a stalker. I had a similar experience living in Flint, Michigan. My mom would take me shopping with her on Saturday, and there was a radio station right across. It was my favorite radio station right across the street from the shopping mall. And I would go stand outside the casement windows they had there. And you could look at the disc jockey sitting in the booth. And in that station, when I was in radio, just to digress a little bit, when I first started, you were not only the talent, but you were literally the disc jockey. You picked out the records, you put them on the turntable, you queued them up, and you talked them up, and then you played them, and you pushed the buttons to make the commercials happen and all of that. Well, I was so disappointed when I found out that's what I had to do, because the station I had visited many times on those Saturday mornings had an engineer who did all that stuff. The jock sat in the booth and just talked. That's all he did. And I said, man, I want that job. I can talk for a living. I can make money doing this. Well, little did I know how little money I would make doing it over the years. But I was shocked when I actually got into and I started by literally walking into a radio station and saying I'd like a job. And the owner himself was there, and he said, here, let me get some copy off the AP and have you read it.
Yep.
which I did, and that was my audition. And they hired me, and I started, I think, the next night.
I remember staring through the glass whenever I could get to a radio station too, and I wanted to do it. And the summer I graduated from high school, I got my first paid job at a little radio station in Milford, Massachusetts. And my job basically that summer was to once an hour come on and do the station ID. And I would say, you're listening to American Legion Baseball from Pheno Field in Milford on WMRC. And the funny thing that I tell people about that station now is that, you remember the Today Show with
Dave Garroway? Or
Dave Garroway, thanks. That I was trying to get. Thank you. They'd had the clocks behind him, and it
Yeah.
gave London, Hong Kong, Paris, and New York. Well, this little radio station upstairs over a furniture store in Milford, Massachusetts, in their waiting room, not that people came in and waited, but anyway, in the first room you went into, had clocks on the wall, 4 clocks, and it said Paris, New York, London, Tokyo, Milford.
Milford.
And all 4 or 5 of the clocks were completely out of sync. Oh.
That's too funny. Do you still keep up with the news of the day, business wise?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
It's sort of in your blood, isn't it?
yeah, right. And
So, what do you make of the current business climate in this country, Joe?
oh dear, it's so unfortunate that prices are so high, and the gas is so high, and that people are having a rough time because a lot of people are out of work, even though the numbers say that employment is rising. And I don't know anybody in my circle who really thinks that it's a good economy. And you know, I think one of the problems in the country today is social media.
You think you actually define it as a problem?
Well, you know, every jackass in the world now has a microphone, and people go to sources of news that they think confirms what their position is. You know, they want to hear their side of the story. But I mean, you know, with the kids, the teenagers, they're on it all the time, and people are able to whip up controversy and sometimes prompt violence because of social media. I remember the newspaper, twice a weekly newspaper in my hometown, um, was something that I followed, and I got to know the publisher and editor. And you know, we had in my hometown a few crazy people, and
Every
they would write
hometown
letters
has
to
them.
the editor. Okay,
Yeah.
at that time there was no internet, no social media, and he would put them into the newspaper. But he knew who the wackos were, but he would edit them down, but he'd still give them coverage. You know, signed John Smith. You know, such and such town, and but he cleaned it up so as not to whip up people and whip up controversy unnecessarily. So you know, maybe that's a journalist talking. You know, about everybody having a microphone now. But
Very
they're not
possibly.
always used for good. The head of public relations at Quinnipiac University told me recently when we were talking. I said, "Do the professors, you know, still love to get calls from the media to do TV or radio interviews?" He told me, he said, "You know what?" He said, "A lot of them don't want to do them anymore, Joe,
Yeah.
because they don't want to share their expertise on radio or TV because they get negative blowback. So they just don't do it."
I'll tell you what, I want to continue our conversation, but I got to pay a couple of bills here. So hang on, and we'll be right back with more from our good friend Joe Connolly.
You've got Dave Elliott.
Hello, this is Melissa Blazier, your Collier County Supervisor of Elections, with an important message about the primary election. All vote-by-mail ballot requests from previous years have expired, and voters who wish to vote by mail in 2026 must renew their request. The deadline to request a ballot for this upcoming election is 5 p.m. on August 6th. Please visit colliervotes.gov or call 239-252-8683, 239-252-8683 to request your ballot today.
And a minute out for Alice Sweetwater's. You know, it's sizzling summer out there. You can tell just by looking at the steam on the windows in the morning. But Alice Sweetwater's has summer sizzling lunch specials just for you every day from 11 to 4. Mondays, the Smash Burger Beach Break for $12. Tuesday, it's Taco Tuesday for $12. Wednesday, the Dockside Duo, which is my favorite. 3 chicken fingers, 3 fried shrimp served with golden fries, $12. And Thursday, the classic French dip. You'll love it. Don't forget Fridays, the local catch lunch. And don't forget Alice Sweetwater's for dinner and snacks and everything in between. It's Alice Sweetwater's, my favorite place to eat, and yours too, I'm sure, at the corner of Glades Boulevard and Airport Road, diagonally across from the East Naples Home Depot. Alice Sweetwater's, where they serve crabs, shrimps, and big people.
Hey, wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Uh-oh. Or that time you forgot to roll up your windows in the car wash.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a remote control would have come in handy then. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes like managing your weight, getting active, stopping smoking, and eating healthier, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. It's easy to learn your risk. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Life doesn't come with a remote control. Yikes! So you're on your own with the wasps. You have the power to take control of prediabetes. Visit doihaveprediabetes.org today. That's doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
He's not really old. He's 45, plus shipping and handling. Dave Elliott.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's always good to have another guy attesting to my stuffness, I guess. We're back with our good friend Joe Connolly from Connecticut this morning, formerly with WCBS All News Radio 880 in New York. And currently,
And it's good to hear you reading commercials again. I feel like I'm back in Naples.
well, you should bring your wife and son down. I was going to ask you about your son without getting too personal, but what does his media consumption look like? How old is he? 18, 19 now?
19 years old. You know, it frustrates us that he's on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. But, Dave, I got to say that he's a pretty smart kid, and he is highly informed on almost any issue that comes up. And we can't get him to read a book, but he reads a lot on the internet. So, you know, it's the stupid parts that we wish he wouldn't take part in. Snapchat and this and that, whatever they are, right? But so he's on the darn thing all the time, too much we think. But he is up on politics, he's up on sports, he's up on the sports industry. He wants to be go to college in business. So, you know,
Well, he's a chip off the old block, it sounds like.
well, you know, and we were talking about just before the professors who don't want to go on the radio or TV anymore and that type of thing. And I was on this weekly conference call that we do with a bunch of journalists. And Harvey Nagler, one of my mentors, was the head of CBS Radio Network, was asked, you know, what has to happen for the country to get back on a more even keel? And he said, well, we just have to somehow get back to being more in the middle. And hopefully that will happen somehow or other as we go along. And you mentioned the economy, and I started to say, how I don't know anybody who thinks it's really that good. But there are some encouraging signs. The Wall Street Journal here, Dave, has a headline today. Everyone's so worried about AI taking our jobs. Never mind the affordability issue, just being employed is important. Headline Wall Street Journal: big firms are starting to hire again, defying predictions of AI wipeout. So,
I see a lot of I'm every day my opinion changes about AI. One day
yeah,
I think it's the most evil thing on the planet. The next day I think, well, maybe there's some good that can come out of this. It is inevitable that AI would be developed and that it will continue to be developed and that it will continue to be controversial. That's inevitable. What isn't inevitable is the outcome of the technology. Nobody really knows. I think we've all been scared by the Terminator movies and Skynet and the specter of surveillance state literally knowing when you go to the bathroom or when you burp or when you eat a cookie that you shouldn't eat. But ultimately, it's going to happen. I maintain that you're still going to need people to make AI work. Agree or disagree?
yeah. Uh, People to use it, to implement it, to speak to clients
Right.
and salespeople. I think AI is great for medicine and for making medical breakthroughs. But as the father of a kid headed to college, I worry about whether there'll be a job for him when he gets through with college. So the job destruction possibility is very concerning to me.
The fact that it's going to literally take American jobs.
Yeah,
So this
that's
leads me to the next question then, which is maybe not the question you're expecting, but what about if we wind up with too much automation, too much AI? People literally will not be able to make livings, and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people will never have jobs. How do we employ them? Do we come up with the concept of universal basic income, which has been talked about a lot, and some cities have even toyed with using it on an experimental basis? How do we accommodate the people who will need to work but simply can't find the jobs?
well, I think the universal basic income is the only one that I really hear about. There's probably some time into the future, but there are a lot of programs being started to retrain people, partly as a result of AI. But I did a story a while back with a woman who was quoted as saying that, I'm worried about my son having a job because of AI. And some expert told her, well, he can be retrained for all kinds of jobs, maybe being a builder or an auto mechanic or swimming pool installer, swimming pool cleaner. The woman said, wait a minute. She said, I want my son to be the man who owns the pool, not cleans it.
Well, she makes a good point, doesn't she?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the point that is maybe hidden in that is that what we're winding up with is a country of entrepreneurs like we've never seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a TikTok account or your kids show it to you, or you look at Facebook, or you look at X, or YouTube, where we are right now, you see that every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a podcast. Many of them are monetizing it,
Mhm.
meaning they're able to make some sort of money from it. and they're developing the skills they need to survive in the world today. I think that entrepreneurism could be the ultimate result of AI taking over the jobs that it's taking over.
Yeah, that's a good theory.
I mean,
I know a lot of a lot of high school kids already resell their used clothing online. They're
yeah,
entrepreneurial even in high school. I
yeah.
spoke to a high school group. This is what they were all doing, selling their secondhand clothes.
Well, we have a friend whose son, while he was a teenager, got into the business of selling these, I think they were knockoff purses and bags that kind of look like Louboutin and, Chanel and stuff. They weren't really rip-offs. They weren't pretending to be those manufacturers, but they were, he was selling these things and he was making a fortune doing it. Had a mailing label thing that he used at his house, and he would, ship the stuff out. He would buy them from China, and then he would sell them online. And he made a lot of money doing that. I think there is a huge opportunity for people to learn to be entrepreneurs, which is why I have maintained forever that high schools and colleges should be teaching courses in entrepreneurship, because it's going to be less like your dad or you did so many years ago when you worked for the same company for 40 years, got a gold watch and a pension at the end.
Well,
that doesn't exist anymore. That model is gone.
Right. And, speaking of that, I was talking to a media executive the other day, and he said, how the heads of the big media companies, TV, radio, all of them, they don't care about the news, and they're paying less and less. And that led into a talk where this guy was saying, he said, I think that the head executives of all industries do not currently appreciate the people they have working for them. They don't understand what they do. They take them for granted. This is going back to our point about the economy, when we talked about the economy not being that strong. And
well, I remember you doing a story one time, and I only remember this because I think I walked in while you were still recording, as I had done occasionally.
Yeah.
And you were doing a story one time about the multiple money that a CEO made compared to his regular workforce.
Right.
You got a guy making $35 million a year, and his workforce is making $60,000 a year. That never used to be the case.
No.
In the majority of companies.
Yeah. And it's a rough economy for most people. I'm so glad to see the oil prices coming down even again today, and hopefully we will get out of this thing and things will go back to a more normal way of operating.
I know. All right.
I mean, what do people tell you about the economy in Naples? I mean, there's some people there obviously happy with it, but what do you hear, Dave?
Well, what I hear is that for the most part, people are pretty happy with things because we're in Naples. We tend to have a little different timetable for what the economy does here. We're the last into a recession, and we're often the first out.
Wow.
Because of the affluence here.
That's great.
So I think for the most part, people are not unhappy with the economy. It's largely, as you know from your time here, it's a very conservative area. So people tend to be supportive of the current president and his policies. And they would rather overlook the fact that gas is $4 and a penny a gallon right now and say, well, it's going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cyclical, you know what I mean? It's going to get better.
That's interesting. I don't find that degree of contentment with the economy in New England, but that makes sense. And a lot of it's fine for many people too. Maybe I'm just bleeding heart, more concerned about the single mom with 3 kids, or sympathizing with people who don't have a job. There's a story on the Associated Press yesterday how so many people are just buying less food now because of the high cost of it. And in a way, that's the way news reporters are supposed to think. What's the old saying? Help the afflicted or something. I forget what it is, but the news reporters are supposed to be watching out for the interests of the typical person.
Right.
That's part of what they do. Not to sound haughty and high about it, but we try to give information to people that will help them.
Yeah. So what's next for Joe Connolly? What are you up to now? What nefarious plot do you have planned to spring upon us?
Well, I've got a couple of things. Just like you said at the beginning here, I don't want to retire either. I still enjoy finding stories that are helpful or useful to people. So I'm talking with a radio station in Fairfield County, Connecticut, about possibly doing what I did on WCBS for this radio station in Connecticut. I'm talking with some non-for-profits about creating positive coverage news stories about what they do that banks and foundations could sponsor, and we would run them on the radio. There's so many things that nonprofits do that don't get covered in the news.
Are you a pretty much dyed-in-the-wool radio guy until your last dying breath?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
I like to do commercials for companies that I believe in. I had cataract surgery this year. I'm trying to convince the woman who did it for me, fantastic doctor. She's very interested in doing some cataract surgery endorsements. Know another financial guy who I may do some ads for. I'm still talking in the microphone, Dave. Sometimes some good comes of it, and sometimes you just can give people helpful, useful information. That's the idea.
I agree with you. Well, it's such a pleasure to get to talk with you on a professional level, because when you and I get together, we talk about all kinds of stuff that we're not talking about here. And I want to invite you back often and soon, and we'll chit-chat some more.
I want to say, Dave, it has been great listening to you. Now, to me, I've been listening to you on this podcast on the radio, and this is one of the ways that radio is changing.
Yeah.
To me, what I hear you saying is radio, but it's really a podcast to even more people.
It
one
is.
of the many ways that radio is adapting. So I really hope this continues and grows for you, and I look forward to seeing you again. You're a good old friend, Dave.
All right. Joe Connolly, formerly WCBS News Radio 880 in New York, currently and the king of the heap of business news in Connecticut. The king of Connecticut. That's what I'm going to call you from now on, Joe. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Say hi to Kathy and your son for us.
Good day. Good day. Thanks, Dave. Bye.
You're welcome. Joe Connolly right there on the Dave Elliott Show. 7:54. I know it was kind of a long conversation, but one of the beautiful things about this program is we can take the time we need to delve into issues and topics that you might think, well, on the one hand, it's all about radio. I'm not in the radio business, but you are in business in some sense or another, probably. Either you are or you were or a family member is. And sometimes you take away stuff that you didn't expect you'd take away. In the Florida news this morning, a Deltona man was arrested after he was caught stealing diesel from Circle K gas stations across the area. That's in Volusia County, by the way, according to the Volusia Sheriff's Office. In a release, deputies said the man, identified as Yusniel Lara, who is 40, is facing multiple larceny counts, tied to diesel thefts reported at Circle K locations in Deltona and DeLand. Those stores reported incidents on July 6th and 12th, where the guy apparently stole an estimated, or is accused of stealing, an estimated 300 gallons of fuel. Surveillance video from the stations reportedly showed the same suspect vehicle each time, a white Ram 2500 pickup. Deputies used license plate reader data to identify the truck and its registered owner as Lara, the deputy said. And I guess the best way that he knew how to put up with high diesel prices was to just steal it. Just steal it. Coming up on 8 o'clock, our good friend J.C. Bruce will be joining us momentarily. And we have a lot to have fun with him about today. And we will. I promise you, J.C., I can't hear you right now, but I know you're there because I checked. Paramount announced Friday afternoon that its takeover of CNN's parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery, will be delayed for many months, and potentially well into 2027 due to pending lawsuits by states' attorneys general and the Writers Guild of America. Paramount said in a court filing that it agreed not to complete the mega merger until an antitrust trial takes place or until June of 2027, whichever comes first. The announcement blowing up Paramount's original plan to take control of Warner by the end of September was the result of discussions between the lawyers for all parties involved. So this thing is dragging on. I wonder if that portends that this might not happen at all. Shares in both Paramount and WBD, that's Warner Brothers Discovery, slumped on the news. In a statement, a Paramount spokesperson said, quote, "Today's agreement is a significant win because the result is exactly what we have sought from the outset, a direct path to a trial based on the evidence." Paramount went on to say, "This is the fastest and clearest way to prove that this transaction is good for competition, good for consumers, and good for creators, a conclusion dozens of competition authorities around the world have already reached." Of course, that's what they should be saying. So we'll see if the Paramount Warner Brothers Discovery merger even happens. A lot of the people at CNN are very nervous about what it could mean for the independence of that network. And if you remember back all the way back to July 4th, what was that, 23 days ago? The city of Cape Coral has now taken down that big giant flag that was flying on their 250-foot flagpole near the Cape Coral Bridge after an issue caused it to hang down on Saturday morning. Would that issue be lack of wind by some chance? According to the city, staff identified what initially appeared to be an issue with the leader line. Further inspection revealed an issue with an eyelet on the flag. 250-foot flagpole, and they have an eyelet problem. The city says it's been in contact with the manufacturer to address the issue, and the original contract includes 2 flags. I notice they're not accusing vandals of doing destruction to the thing. They're blaming it on an eyelet. Maybe they could have done that with the reflecting pool and solved the problem even sooner. Who knows? 8 o'clock, back with J.C. Bruce after this.
Dave Elliott.
I'd like to take a minute to talk to you about your hearing, and especially if you are experiencing hearing problems or you've noticed recently that your hearing just isn't as acute as it used to be. Well, the folks at Naples Audiology and Hearing Center can take care of that for you. My friend, audiologist and owner Christine Peacock, and her entire staff are dedicated to one thing and one thing only. And no, it's not the freshly baked chocolate chip cookies you'll find every day when you walk in, but it's your hearing. If you wear cochlear implants, they can help you with that. If you wear hearing aids, they can help you tune them up or get them repaired if they're under warranty. Or if you need to be replacing them, they can help you with that too. At Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, they are the experts. They've been around a long time, and it's not this one-size-fits-all thing with them because everybody's hearing concerns are unique. Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, online at napleshearingcenter.com, or call them at 239-434-2434 and tell them you heard about it on the Dave Elliott Show.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
He's reached that age where his brain goes, you probably shouldn't say that, to, I can't wait to see where this goes. Dave Elliott.
Okay, we're back here at this esteemed hour. It's 2 minutes past 8 o'clock. On Monday morning, if you're listening to us on demand, it doesn't matter what time it is. It's just time for you to listen to a little bit more, and we have the perfect person to help us do that. It's J.C. Bruce, the author, columnist, pundit. What else do you do, J.C., besides that? Oh, wait a minute. I have you muted here. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Am I on?
You're on.
Oh, great. Well, I also show up on the Dave Elliott Show.
You do.
It's the highlight of my week.
Oh, come on. We all know we all know the highlight of your week is when you get to be done on the Dave Elliott Show.
Well, I really like what your previous guest was saying about podcast and radio sort of merging together. I mean, you know, you have an audio podcast. What's the difference between that and radio? It's just a question of, you know, how you listen to it, right?
Of technology, yeah.
Yeah.
It can be the same content, except here we're freer to go long form, to talk about things that you might not be able to talk about on the air.
Yeah.
To give people a chance to win prizes. For example, today we're launching our first giveaway on the show right after you and I are done with the impossible question, where somebody's going to win a $25 gift certificate to Alice Sweetwater's.
Nice.
And we have a whole scheme that we've worked up to make that happen. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be happening at about 8:40 this morning. And Jeff, unfortunately, you are ineligible, but I'll be happy to take you there for lunch sometime. I think we've been there for lunch, haven't we?
We have, and that was actually the first time I had gone there, and I really liked that place a lot.
Oh, it's
I liked
great.
the staff. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, the food's great too.
Yeah.
So Jeff was, Joe was talking, and he's, you know, he and I are about the same. We're all three of us about the same age. And Joe was talking about how the economy is, in other parts of the world, not considered to be in good shape. But here in Florida, people seem to be satisfied with the shape of the economy. Now, you in addition to writing fun stuff, which you do incredibly well, you also write about politics and you write about important stuff. And I'm curious to get your take on what you think the Florida economy looks like and how it is perceived by the people in this state.
Well, I think it's interesting timing that we would ask that question today, because today is the day that temporary protection status protections particularly for Haitian refugees expires. There's 350,000 of those people in our state who today, a lot of them are very afraid that they may be deported. Some of them are keeping their kids from going to school. Well, most kids aren't in school yet, but they're keeping their kids home. They may not be showing up for work. They're afraid they'll be snatched off the street by ICE. And in the meantime, you have a lot of business interests who are saying, hey, wait a minute, we really depend on these people. I mean, they're an important part of our economy and our workforce. And, there have been, there's a lot of angst about this decision. I only mention that within the context of the question you just asked, because I think that when you try to answer a question, what do people feel about it? It kind of depends on where you are and what your circumstances are. And as both of you mentioned in that earlier segment, where this broadcast is coming from in Naples is really a bubble. It is not representative of America at large. I mean, it is one of the wealthier communities in the country. You have a high percentage of people who are, high net worth, who have second homes here or have retired here. And but I will say that in my conversations with people living in Southwest Florida, there's a lot of talk about the price of gasoline, about how their wallet takes a pretty big dent these days when they go to the grocery store. And even if people are reasonably comfortable financially, nobody likes this. Nobody likes this increase in cost of living. And I think that, and I've written about this a lot in my Substack newsletter that you referenced. Thank you for that. I think that this is going to be the big issue in the midterm elections. I mean, who was it? Bill Clinton that said, it's the economy, stupid.
That was James Carville who said that.
James Carville said
Yeah.
it. That's definitely what this is about. And I think that Congress is trying to pass subsidies for farmers because the tariffs are wrecking their business. We've got, we have any number of sectors of the economy that are really suffering right now. And, and we have we're on a war footing, and who knows where that leads. So that leads to insecurity. And when people get insecure, they tend to do things like go to restaurants less, buy less. That hurts consumer spending, which hurts the overall economy, which hurts businesses, which hurts employment. So I think the economy's in peril right now.
But there are some bright spots. Let me give you an example. This morning in the Naples Daily News is a headline that Southwest Florida leads the nation in rent decreases. That's a good thing. Rents have been ridiculously high.
Right.
I mean, 40-year-old apartment buildings, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, going for $1,700 a month.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, my wife went shopping yesterday and bought a dozen eggs. She said, guess how much I paid for these eggs? And I said, $6.12. And she said, a dozen eggs, $1.46.
Oh, that's good.
That's like 14 cents an egg.
Yeah, I don't even know how you make a profit doing that when you figure out transportation costs and everything else. Well, I think that one of the things that's happened there, of course, one of the things driving up the cost of eggs through nobody's fault, I mean, I'm not going to blame Trump for this, is, the bird flu. So we had just an awful lot of chickens that had to be slaughtered because we had that going on. So it's good to see that that's recovering. And that's, I spend a lot of time on science blogs, and you and I are both sci-fi geeks.
Yeah.
But I'm generally, I'm more interested in science than I am about politics. Although I spend all my time writing about politics, it seems.
Well, so few people are really interested in science or science fiction. I mean, that's rarefied air,
Yeah. So, but it's there's the Washington Post, for instance, does a great job covering health issues, and one of the things that you constantly read about is just how good eggs are for you. I mean, they're full of vitamins and protein and all this stuff. So it's good news that the price of eggs have gone down, because that's a great staple for people.
Well, I'm an omelet guy.
Yeah, so am I.
So I eat them 3 eggs at a time.
Yeah, yeah. What do you mix into your omelets?
I make my omelets with whatever I have in the house, but I'm particularly fond of onions, feta cheese, and spinach.
Oh, that's nice. I don't like spinach. I like broccoli.
You ever had sauteed spinach with garlic and butter? Oh, Jeff, I'm telling you right now, man.
Yeah, it tastes like spinach with butter and garlic. But it's stringy, it gets in your teeth. It's just nasty.
It does not, if it's done properly.
You and my wife are aligned on that argument.
I'll tell you, the best sauteed garlic on this planet is at Shula's Steakhouse. And if you don't like it, You will love theirs.
I'll tell you
Big
what.
chunks of garlic in there.
Big chunks of garlic. Yeah, Cheesecake Factory has excellent sautéed spinach, too. Now, I'll tell you where I
But
do
how do
like
you know if you don't like it?
Well, because my wife always orders it.
Oh,
She
I
makes
see.
me take a bite
I
because she
see.
thinks it's healthy. She's
Eat
looking
your
out for my
spinach,
interest.
Jeff.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, I'll tell you how I do like spinach, and that's in saag. I love Indian food. And for people who may not know, saag is a spinach dish where you take spinach, and if you do it properly, it's like a day-long effort to make saag. You really crunch that spinach up, and then you mix it with cream and spices, and it's delicious. I like that. That to me, that's the way to eat spinach. But of course, what you're really doing is eating a lot of cream and spices.
You know, as much as I love Indian food, my wife doesn't like anything spicy. So if we were to go to Indian food, we'd have to bring her a Big Mac.
Well, now I also read in one of my recent health blogs that I read is that what is pepper? The chemical in pepper, is it capsaicin? I don't know how to pronounce
Capsaicin.
Capsaicin. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
See, this is why I enjoy so much talking to you.
Yeah,
because being
capsaicin is in the Carolina Reaper. It's in various
it's in
other
all peppers.
peppers.
Yeah.
And it has medicinal properties. It lowers blood pressure, which is ironic considering that it is can make you sweat.
Right. But it also, they did this massive study, and they found, of course, this is, again, one of these observational studies where there can be so many other factors that, control the outcome. But they found that people who eat spicy food several days a week have an 18% longer lifespan.
Well, I'm in good shape then. I love buffalo everything.
Yeah.
When I go to Alice's and get their grouper fish and chips, I always ask for a side of medium buffalo sauce, and I dip them in that. And
There you go.
I dip
one of the
French
things
fries in that.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. I've never done that.
Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah. So one of the things they're saying is that because capsaicin, is that how we say that?
Capsaicin, yeah.
Capsaicin, thank you. I love talking to radio guys because, they make their living learning how to pronounce words properly. They put, the right emphasis on the correct syllable. So,
I do
yeah.
every time.
So they say that people who eat a lot of spicy foods use less salt because the capsaicin satisfies that sort of salty taste need. So that's one of the reasons your blood pressure is lower.
And the other thing that's good for a salt substitute is lemon juice. You use lemon juice. We had a meal last night. We're using 3 nights a week. We use Hello Fresh meals that are delivered to our house once a week.
You should get them as a sponsor.
I really should because I love their recipes. Sometimes there's a lot of chopping and dicing involved, but their food is fresh every time. The recipes are delicious. They use a lot of lemon and zucchini in their recipes.
Zucchini.
Yeah.
So we have a holiday coming up with zucchini. It's in August.
Well, that was a beautiful transition, by the way.
Don't you think?
I'm telling you, you're the king of segues.
Yeah.
Forget Johnny Carson.
I have, because I'm going on a little field trip, I've been writing my Florida Weekly columns a few weeks in advance. I think I'm about 4 weeks out now, so I tend to get these dates mixed up in my head. My Florida Weekly column is usually just something funny at the top and then a list of all these crazy holidays at the bottom. But there is an annual holiday in August. It's basically put zucchini on your neighbor's porch day.
Well, I remember having a garden one time, and the thing about zucchini, if you plant one, you get 10,000 of them.
That's it. And that's how the holiday got started. It actually got started in 1944 by a radio guy up in Pennsylvania who had too much zucchini. And so he just, he walked a bunch of zucchini over on his neighbor's front porch and dropped it off and ran. And that's because zucchini grows like crazy. You go from seed to a full zucchini in about 5 weeks. It's just nuts. So
it's zucchini.
Right. So I'm not big on any kind of squash. I'm not a squash person. I've played squash, but I don't eat squash.
Well, I am a zucchini fan. We sometimes make this little thing where we take 6 scrambled eggs. We take 6 eggs, scramble them, saute some zucchini, maybe some tomato, maybe a little bit of onion, garlic, and then pour the egg mixture over it and create what's kind of like a big giant pan-sized frittata.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, and it's so delicious. And you can put whatever, and we add the feta cheese to it because I like feta cheese.
Well, feta cheese is good for you.
It is good for you. It's Mediterranean.
Yeah, but I have a question for
How
you
can
since
it
you're an
be
omelet
bad?
guy.
Yeah.
When I try to make omelets at home, you go to restaurants and they've done this wonderful sort of semicircular folded omelet. It's just done perfectly.
Beautifully.
When I do, it's just like scrambled eggs with stuff in it. I mean, do you actually make a real omelet where
I
it's
do.
folded over and looks properly?
Not the thin kind like you get when they have the whole griddle to work with, where they can the eggs spread out.
Yeah.
But I can generally, and people who have eaten my omelets will testify to the fact that I generally can make a nice omelet folded in half so that it, resembles a giant taco.
Wow.
And it just took a little practice. I actually learned how to make the omelet from Jeff Smith, the Frugal Gourmet, on PBS TV.
Yeah.
Who says you should never make an omelet unless the eggs are at room temperature.
Oh.
Because the cold does something to the eggs that makes them not cook properly. I don't know what it is.
Well, that's interesting.
So room temperature. And he made an omelet one time that had sliced apples in it. And I know that sounds awful, but it was really tasty because I tried it. Granny Smith.
Oh, yeah, right? You get that kind of sour taste?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see that. Like chopped up real fine?
No, they were just
Just a whole apple with eggs wrapped around it.
Thin
Okay.
slices.
Okay.
Like you cut the apple in half and then you slice it into little, like an eighth of an inch or a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of get warm in the egg mixture, and it was extremely tasty.
Well, I'll tell you what. Since we seem to be on the topic of food, I'll tell you about a breakfast experience I had. Is that okay? Can I talk about that?
We can talk about whatever the hell we want. It's
that's
our
cool.
show.
So I had to go in for a medical procedure last week. It's
minor.
about every
I hope.
3 to 5 years I have to go in for a colonoscopy.
Oh yeah.
And we all know about colonoscopy prep, so I won't dwell on that. But by the time you get to the surgical center or wherever it is, you haven't eaten for a day and a half. You haven't been allowed to have any fluid for at least 3 hours. And, so you're really dehydrated and really hungry. And I sat around, in the gurney for about an hour waiting for my turn. And all I could do is think about what am I going to have to eat when I get out of this place. And so I finally get wheeled in, and the doctor's there, and we strike up a conversation about that. And we're talking about cyclospora, worrying about, gee, I love vegetables, but I'm afraid to eat anything that's not cooked. And I love fruit, and I'm not eating any fruit right now because of cyclospora fears. He says, well, you can eat blueberries because you can wash them. Just, avoid blackberries and raspberries because they're a little bit harder to clean. And for God's sake, don't eat lettuce. So, but anyway, I get out of this procedure, which basically involves all of a sudden they say, okay, you're going to have a funny taste in your mouth. And then a second later, you're waking up in recovery. And I'm still just thinking about food. So my wife picks me up. And she says, where do you want to go get something to eat? And I said, let's go straight to Skillet's because I know what I want. And we get there, and I tell the waitress, and we go to the same Skillet's all the time, and we know the staff there, and they're great. And they should be a sponsor of this show. And
They
I
definitely
tell them,
should be.
I know. And I tell them, I say, okay, I want a giant pancake. I want half of it to have chocolate chips and half of it to have blueberries. Can you do that? And she says, no, I don't think we can do that. But what we can do is just mix chocolate chips and blueberries together, and you can have a chocolate blueberry pancake, which is what I had. And let me tell you something.
That sounds like a pretty decadent little breakfast.
It was decadent, and it was absolutely delicious. So a pancake mixed with stuff like that is kind of an omelet, right? Instead of having eggs with stuff thrown in it, you got pancake batter with stuff thrown in it.
It's a pancake omelet.
That's right. It's a pancake omelet.
I
guess I could have folded it over.
As a rule, I do not like sweet stuff in the morning.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big, my daughter loves pancakes. My brother has a pancake griddle. When we go visit him at his house, he's always, making pancakes.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm an eggs and turkey sausage kind of guy. That would be my ideal breakfast.
Yeah, that's my favorite meal of the day. Yeah. I'm pretty much an eggs and, chicken sausage.
Well, now all of our listeners know what we like for breakfast.
Right, and that's an important thing for people to know. Now they can use us as a guidepost for their own lives.
Most important meal of the day.
Right.
A reminder, coming up in about 20 minutes, we're going to be playing Impossible Question, and somebody's going to win a $25 gift certificate to Alice Sweetwater's today.
But not me.
So not you. But you'll win because you'll go with me to lunch there again sometime soon. I understand that coming up on Wednesday, it's the Thunder Moon. What is the Thunder Moon, Jeff?
Well, it is a full moon.
Yeah.
It is it was interesting. It comes really late in the month this year. But it is
apparently about as late as you can get, save for 2 days.
Yeah. So it's July's full moon. And every full moon has a funny name for one thing or another. And it's also known as the buck moon.
The buck moon.
Yeah, and the reason it's called the thunder moon is because usually have a lot of thunderstorms this time of year, virtually everywhere,
especially
right?
here.
Summer thunderstorms.
Yeah.
And so it kind of adopted that name. It's certainly true here in Florida. But it's also known as the buck moon because this is the time of year, apparently, that deer start regrowing their horns after they shed them. I'm not an expert on deer horns or
Well,
deer,
they're actually
period.
called antlers.
Oh, they're right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And if you're a deer hunter,
So you shouldn't use the term deer horns.
Wasn't that a song by Henry Mancini? Deer horns. Da, 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 da.
Deer horns. Okay, just take me out and shoot me. So,
No,
antlers.
sorry.
Thank you.
Not going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard of buck horns before.
There you go. Okay,
but
good.
But when you deer hunt, they determine the significance of your trophy by how many points are on the antlers.
Okay, so I have a question about that because I'm not much of a hunter. Actually, I'm not a hunter at all. I hunt and peck when I type, but I don't hunt animals.
You're a lover, not a hunter?
Well, no, I just prefer all of my meat packaged in cellophane at Publix. So certainly not a vegetarian.
You like processed meat is what I'm hearing.
Right. Yeah, we have people for that. So when you count the points on a antler, is it both sides or just one?
No, it's both sides.
Both sides. So it's
and
collectively.
Usually, you very seldom ever get an odd number.
I was going to ask you that. That was my next question.
And so if you have an 8-point buck, it's generally 4 and 4.
Okay.
But not always. Sometimes one breaks off, or sometimes there are mutants that don't grow equal
So you could
numbers.
have a 5 and 3.
You could have a 5 and 3, or you could have a 5 and 6, so you'd have 11 points.
Ah, okay.
I think the most I've ever seen was a 14-point buck.
Wow.
And that
That's
was an old dude, let me tell you. And in the town I lived in Michigan, when deer hunting season happened, beginning on the 15th of November, you walk outside to go to work in the morning, and all you hear is bang, 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 bang. The whole. As soon as the sun came up, the shooting started.
Wow.
And then they had this big, I forget what kind of a pole. It's a pole that hangs in the middle of town, and it's basically like a rack that you'd have in your closet to hang your shirts on, but it's made out of logs.
Okay.
And people would get their deer, they would gut them, and then they would hang the remainder of the deer on the buck pole. I guess it was called a buck pole.
In the middle of town.
In the middle of town, so that everybody could go by and marvel at the hunting acumen of the people in the community.
So it's kind of a public hanging, only it's with deer.
Although I have to say that in my experience, nobody in the town knew what the word acumen meant. So
Yeah.
they would
I can
sit-
only imagine being a real estate agent in that town, bringing somebody in for the first time and say, yeah, we have a nice town. People here are very friendly. Oh, look, there's all the deer hanging
all
in
the
town
dead
square.
deer hanging. A lot of
Yeah.
venison there for you, Fal.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
You'll like it here. Very friendly people. Pay no
Well-
attention to the gunshots.
Well, deer hunting in Michigan, Wisconsin, and well, you go up to Ohio from time to time. It's a big sport, and
Yeah.
it's done partly to cull the herd because a lot of these deer would die of starvation,
Yeah.
and also then just for a lot of people, harvest the meat and will eat
Oh, yeah.
venison through the year. I've
Yeah,
had
yeah.
venison, not my favorite kind of.
Well, when I
you know.
lived in Dayton, Ohio for a long time, and we were just overrun with deer. I mean, you wake up in the morning, there's deer eating your hosta outside the
Yeah.
house, and they're all over the place. In fact, some communities, it got so bad that they actually hired bow hunters to go around and just thin the deer population in the cities because they were just
Mm-hmm.
and eventually, they get overpopulated, they don't have enough to eat, you have all these kind of problems because they're natural predators. I mean, we chose to get rid of wolves, so, who's going to keep the deer population down if it's not the people? So, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and people do. I mean, they package and freeze venison, and they have venison stew and, all that
Yeah.
stuff all year long. So, I mean, it's
Well, in some
It's-
states they actually have a bow and arrow deer season that usually is before the shotgun season starts.
right.
And you can literally get a license and go out with a bow and arrow and, harvest a deer.
Yeah.
Mutt's Day is on Friday.
Oh, that's right.
Mutt's Day.
Honestly, I'd forgotten about that
Well, you shouldn't have because you wrote about it.
because I just sent it to you, right?
You did.
Yeah. So, also coming up is Paperback Book Day.
I could
That's
get
on the
into
30th.
that. I could get
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah, you and I both love books.
My stepdad used to read paperbacks by the dozen. He would sit in this very deep executive chair that he just almost disappeared into.
Yeah.
And he would hold the book by the top with his hand wrapped around the top of the book,
Mhm.
facing him, and he would flip the pages, and he would read for hours at a time. In between reading magazines like Argosy and Field and Stream,
Yeah.
he would read these potboiler novels, the stuff by like the Tom Clancy kind of novels. And I would read science fiction, but I was such a snob that
Oh,
if
dear.
it was not in hardcover, I didn't read it.
I've got a pretty big library, and I guess most of them are hardcover, but because I've tended to give away or just get rid of.
In fact, I
paperback
have a
copies.
picture. I'm going to put it up on the stream
Yeah.
of you standing in front of your library right now.
Okay.
When you watch the show later, you'll see it.
Okay.
It shows you in front of a huge bookshelf loaded with, of all things, books by J.C. Bruce.
Imagine that.
How
Imagine that.
convenient.
I do most of my reading these days on my iPad.
I do too.
Yeah, and that's how I spend my evenings. We rarely watch television in our house. I mean, I'm constantly reading. So, yeah,
Well, that's
I love
good
it.
to know.
yeah, I love reading. Have you
And-
seen The Odyssey yet?
I have not. I am debating whether I want to see it. It's 3 hours long or something.
That's
It's
a
quite-
conversation my wife and I just had on our morning walk. It's that. See, my argument was with 3-hour movies like Oppenheimer, which same director,
I
right?
thoroughly enjoyed Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan. Yeah.
Right. So I never saw Oppenheimer, and I was offended by the fact that he couldn't tell a story in less than 3 hours. I thought, give me a break. Now I understand it's a great movie, and I just
But it wasn't like the Odyssey happened in an evening between two friends.
well, that's the thing about the Odyssey, right?
It's an
I mean,
Odyssey.
It's an odyssey. It's a big story.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the least bit bothered by the fact that it's 3 hours long. Although I do wonder, does it have an intermission?
I don't think so. I think it's straight through.
I think that's kind of weird. I mean, the long movies, used to have intermissions, right?
Well, even not so long movies. I remember going to see The Sound of Music in 1965, and there was an intermission.
Right. So, I mean, nowadays you go see Odyssey. You get your Coke, your popcorn, your catheter, and you settle in, right?
Well, you don't have to have a catheter. There's a website called when2p.com. Have you seen that website?
I have not, but this is great.
It tells you when in a movie is the best time to go to the bathroom.
They figured that out?
Apparently somebody with way too much time on his hands and a very full bladder.
Oh, I see. So it's for any given movie.
Yeah.
So that's really clever.
I think it's called when2p.com. I'll have to look it up. But the idea being that if you do decide to, buy the 44-ounce Coke,
well, what else?
I never quite understood that, why they would sell Coca-Cola in large quantities at a movie theater.
Right.
Without
pay, if you're going to do that, install pay toilets. I mean, really make a killing on this.
It's called Run P, not When to Pee. It's called Run P.
Run P.
The app that tells you the best time to run and pee during a movie. The world's most indispensable movie app, it says.
I love this. This is great. So how long is the average
It's an app,
game?
by the way. You can get the app and put it on your iPhone.
Okay.
I don't know, about 2 hours maybe?
Yeah, right. But they all have a seventh, but even baseball has a seventh inning stretch, right? So,
yeah.
So I don't understand. Football has a halftime.
Largely due to the fact that Harry Carey just couldn't hold it through the whole 9 innings. When you thought he was singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," that was a recording. He was in the bathroom taking a whiz.
He was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what? Is that real? Is that true?
No, it's not true.
I want it to be true.
I just said it as a joke because I thought it was glib and funny, and I'm sure there are Harry Carey fans out there going, "Don't say that about my hero."
I think it's true. I'm going with it. I think it's true. I think that's great because it's kind of like your commercials, right? I mean, you just
They're
you can
all
at
true.
least. No, I know your commercials are true, but I mean they're all pre-recorded, right? So you can just switch right in. Nobody can tell the difference because your audio quality is so good.
Well, and it helps that I use the same microphone to do my commercials.
Right.
I do other
So
things.
you were talking to your previous guest,
Joe Connolly.
Joe Connolly, longtime radio guy.
Yeah.
About that we were talking about this earlier about how audio podcast and radio basically the same thing, just a question of what's your listening device, and kind of like shortwave radio. I mean, I don't know about you, when I was a kid, I learned Morse code. I wanted to be a shortwave radio operator, and now people just use cell phones. I mean, what do you need shortwave radio for? Now it's radio on the internet, right? So
It is radio on the internet, and in many ways it's so freeing because I can end when I'm done talking, and I don't have to try to fill out the last 3.5 minutes with something to get me to the top of the hour. I believe in providing content when there's content to be provided, and if there's no content, what's the point?
Right.
I also like interacting with the listeners and playing games like we're going to play here in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
And I enjoy finding stories and people who are interesting to our audience. Tomorrow we're going to be joined by our good pal Tim Ayton from GulfShoreBusiness.com, for example. I have another radio guy scheduled to be on with us on Wednesday. Jim Watkins will be joining us from Cape Coral. He's a former radio syndication. I'm not a syndicator. He's a affiliate relations guy, and he was a program director for a station I worked at. On Thursday, we're going to bring you the incredible story of a male nurse who, hold on a second. I got to do a little housekeeping. Eileen, could you come here for a second?
Oh, Eileen.
She just walked in the room, and I don't think she heard me summon her.
Oh.
But anyway, we'll get to her. We'll get to her when we're done here. This guy is a male nurse. He was on vacation in January when he saw a woman being attacked by a shark.
Oh, wow.
In the Virgin Islands. And his story is harrowing. He'll be with us on Thursday to talk about that. So we have quite a variety of people. Former Naples Mayor Bill Barnett will be with us. Chelsea Murphy will be here with Where to Go, What to Do on Friday. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up here.
Well, it's a lot of really interesting stuff. And by the way, I used to work with Tim Ayton at the Naples Daily News. I was the managing editor there for a couple of years. And guy's amazing. He has a huge following.
He has more stuff in his brain by itself.
I know. And I just actually wrote him this morning a question. I was just checking my email while you were talking to see if he'd written back yet. But I noticed the other day, we're driving out to Immokalee. There's this enormous development going on the north side of Immokalee Road right before you get to downtown Immokalee. And I realized I have no idea what it is. I tried to Google it to find an answer, and I wasn't sure I was getting the right answer. So I said, well, I know what I'll do. I'll just ask Tim Ayton. He knows everything.
He does.
So, yeah.
Well, he'll maybe give you a little credit on the show tomorrow when he answers the question.
Well, I mean, really and truly, that's, this wouldn't be the first time. I mean, you got something going on around town. I mean, what do? You email Tim Ayton. He will know, or he will find out.
Well, I don't have time to get into it, but next Monday we'll talk about Pirate Month, International Pirate Month. Arg. And that'll be coming up. Listen, I understand you're going to be out of town for a couple of weeks.
I am.
So we'll check in with you in 2 or 3 weeks when you're back, and looking forward to it. In the meantime, if people are interested in reading any of your highly entertaining novels, all of which are set here in Southwest Florida, at least in part, and or your column in the Florida Weekly and or your Substack newsletter, how do they go about doing all of that?
Well, the swiftest way to do it is just go to www.tropic.press. That is my website. That'll take you to my Substack website where you can find my newsletters. You can find copies of previous columns that I've written, and there are links there to my books. So thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
Of course. J.C. Bruce joining us on Monday morning. We'll talk to you in a few weeks. Have safe travels.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, Jeff. It's coming up on Impossible Question Time, so whatever you're doing, stay right there, and we'll be right back.
You've got Dave Elliott.
And a minute out for Alice Sweetwater's. It's sizzling summer out there. You can tell just by looking at the steam on the windows in the morning. But Alice Sweetwater's has summer sizzling lunch specials just for you every day from 11 to 4. Mondays, the Smash Burger Beach Break for $12. Tuesday, it's Taco Tuesday for $12. Wednesday, the Dockside Duo, which is my favorite. 3 chicken fingers, 3 fried shrimp served with golden fries, $12. And Thursday, the classic French dip. You'll love it. Don't forget Fridays, the local catch lunch. And don't forget Alice Sweetwater's for dinner and snacks and everything in between. It's Alice Sweetwater's, my favorite place to eat, and yours too, I'm sure. At the corner of Glades Boulevard and Airport Road, diagonally across from the East Naples Home Depot, Alice Sweetwater's, where they serve crabs, shrimps, and big people.
Hello, this is Melissa Blazier, your Collier County Supervisor of Elections, with an important message about the primary election. All vote-by-mail ballot requests from previous years have expired, and voters who wish to vote by mail in 2026 must renew their request. The deadline to request a ballot for this upcoming election is 5 p.m. on August 6th. Please visit colliervotes.gov or call 239-252-8683, 239-252-8683 to request your ballot today.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. encourage them to see a doctor, or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. The Alzheimer's Association provides care, support, and research to help you take control of the situation with your family and manage the disease together. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. Visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
And here's Heather with the weather.
Well, it's beautiful out there, sunny and 75, almost a little chilly in the shade. Now, let's get a read on the inside of your car. It is hot. You've only been parked a short time and it's already 99 degrees in there. Let's not leave children in the back seat while running errands. It only takes a few minutes for their body temperatures to rise, and that could be fatal.
Cars get hot fast and can be deadly. Never leave a child in a car. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
When Dave talks, his lips actually move. Dave Elliott.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're going to be around here for the next few minutes, and I'm going to give somebody a chance to win some great prizes now because you know what time it is? Have a listen. Well, that didn't work. I had it all set up to work, and it didn't work. Here we go.
The impossible question on the Dave Elliott Show.
So here's the deal. Beginning today, we're going to give you a chance to win a $25 gift certificate to Alice Sweetwater's on Airport Road at Glades Boulevard, diagonally across from the East Naples Home Depot. And how this works is I'm going to ask you an impossible question. We're going to put the 30-day rule in effect beginning today. So anybody who's won the game up till now on this show is eligible today. But beginning today, there will be a 30-day rule that goes into effect moving forward. And that 30-day rule set will normally say if you have won anything from us in the last 30 days, you're ineligible. But everybody's eligible for the next 30 days. Okay, once you've won, though, you got to give somebody else a chance. And we're going to ask you to text us your answer at 350. I might want to take Jeff's picture off the screen here. It's been up there way too long, I think. There we go. At 305-699-2665. 305-699-2665. If you think you know the answer to the impossible question, and I have a $25 gift card to Alice Sweetwater's for you. If you text, don't call me because I can't take the information down while we're live here, but I can get your information to you when you text me. So text me your first name and the answer to the impossible question that you think is correct. Area code 305-699-2665. And here's today's impossible question. 20% of people are using one of these that is over 10 years old. Impossible question for today, Monday. 20% of people are using one of these that is over 10 years old. What do you think it is? If you think you know, give me a call. Send me a text right now at 305-699-2665. 699-2665, area code 305. And of course, one person already texting me, toothbrush, sorry, that is incorrect. It is not the toothbrush. By the way, a 10-year-old toothbrush? Really? From Marco Island this morning. Somebody said a laptop. No, that's not correct. Frank says hairbrush. Nancy says hairbrush. Frank says shoes. None of those are correct either. Again, the impossible question. 20% of people are using one of these that is over 10 years old. No, Jeff, it's not the bidet. I wouldn't want to use a 10-minute-old bidet, let alone a 10-year-old bidet. 20% of people are using one of these that is over 10 years old. Frank says car. No, sorry, that is incorrect as well. And Betty Ann says coffee pot. That is incorrect as well. I'm getting to them as quickly as I possibly can as they come streaming in here. 305-699-2665. Our impossible question, 20% of people are using one of these that's over 10 years old. Nancy says a bicycle. Diane on Marco Island says a fry pan. Sorry, those aren't right either, but thank you all very much for the guesses. I'll take a few more at 305-699-2665. Let me see here. Bobby says a pillow. And Mala, I think it is, says blue jeans. Nope, none of those are correct. Howard says cell phone, and he's incorrect on that one as well. I'm sorry to say, Howard. That was a good guess. Again, 20% of people are using one of these that's over 10 years old. And I will tell you this right now. Most of the time you're using this, you are not conscious. All right? Most of the time you are using this, you are not conscious. Frank he texted in again, said radio, incorrect. 20% of people are using one of these that's over 10 years old. What is it? Betty Ann again, a blanket. Marco says a bed. No, you're close, Marco. Not specifically a bed. What could it be? 20% of people use one of these. That is Frank got it. All right, Frank's the winner. Frank got it. He knew the answer was a mattress. Frank is our winner, the smartest guy in town this morning. And he got the answer correct on the impossible question. The answer was mattress. And Frank is taking home the prize. Frank, immediately after the show, I will be contacting you at the number you texted me at, and I will tell you how you can claim your Alice Sweetwater's $25 gift certificate. So Frank, the big winner this morning. Frank, you are now not eligible to win again for another 30 days. Thank you very much, all of you. We had, man, I can't believe all the people who guessed this morning. Diane from Marco Island finally guessed mattress. JC guessed mattress. Somebody else guessed pajamas mattress. So I'll be getting a hold of Frank and giving him his Alice Sweetwater's prize. Thank you all very much for participating in the impossible question this morning. Now, I have other news out there for you today. Did you know that shark sightings are way up in Florida? It turns out, in fact, if I can find it here, let me see which one it is. A team of shark experts ventured to a remote island off Nova Scotia in search of a mysterious population of enormous great whites, measuring up to 20 feet long. Wasn't that what Bruce the Shark was from Jaws? Wasn't he a great white? Their ultimate target was Big Rose, an elusive 3-ton female believed to be one of the largest great white sharks ever encountered in the North Atlantic. Shark researcher Dr. Neil Hammerschlag first spotted the colossal predator last year and returned for the Discovery's Shark Week special Invasion of the Mega Sharks, airing Sunday at 10 p.m., determined to find and tag her. The expedition unfolded as great white encounters between Cape Cod and Nova Scotia have reportedly surged by 1,000% over the past decade, with researchers increasingly observing what Hammerschlag described as very large, massive great whites. And they're apparently also reporting large numbers of shark sightings off the coast of Florida. So not just Canada, but we're also seeing them here in the Sunshine State. Hey, bosses, do you feel like it's harder to get more out of your employees this time of year? Well, it turns out it's not your imagination. employees are 52% more likely to use vacation time from June through August than at any time of the year. The most popular sick days are the Tuesdays after Memorial Day and Labor Day. Week in and week out, employees were most likely to call in sick on Mondays. I think that makes perfect sense. And despite what most people think, managers take more sick days than the rest of the staff do. Of course, that's why they're managers. Oh, I'm managing from home today. Please don't call me. I'm sick. And what is the biggest box office bomb ever? Well, it is not The Odyssey, which Jeff and I were just talking about a little bit ago. The Odyssey has already made back its production budget and will soon recoup its marketing costs. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but the cost to make a movie is not just how much it costs to make the movie, but the marketing. And in many cases, if they believe they have a great movie on their hands, the marketing is actually more expensive than the movie budget. Well, there are a number of ways to calculate what the biggest box office bombs of all time are. But the simplest is to measure a bomb by how dramatically it failed to recoup its original production cost. The so-called winner goes to The Adventures of Pluto Nash from 2002. The production budget was around $100 million. $100 million budget. The movie made just $7.1 million worldwide. So the studio recoup on their investment was just over 7%. A more complicated formula accounts for total estimated financial loss, not simple net production budget minus box office revenue. Studios only keep roughly 50% of the domestic box office revenues and even less internationally. So Pluto Nash's $7.1 million gross only returned about $3.5 million to the studio. Then there's marketing and advertising. Using the more complicated formula, 2023's The Marvels delivered an estimated studio loss of between $194 million and $237 million for, of all people, Disney. So that's how you figure out. And the fact that you've never heard of Pluto Nash shows you just how big a failure it really was. It's going to do it for today. Tomorrow, here on the Dave Elliott Show, we'll be joined by Tim Ayton from Gulf Shore Business and Gulf Shore Business Associate publication, the Naples Press, and we'll have a look at what's new in town. I hope you can join us for that. Wednesday, Reg Buxton and Jim Watkins will be here with us, all on the Dave Elliott Show. Please tell a friend. You can go to daveontheair.com to find the Listen Live link and click it and drag that link off to your desktop, and you'll have it all there where you need it, or listen on your phone as well using the YouTube app. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow.